Okay, so with elephant and the elephant talk in either wherever the elephants are, it's just very hard to get any audio feed. So I'm going to give a brief explanation of what I talk about and some of the ways you can tell the different elephants apart when introducing them to the guests, and then the video will cut to me talking to the public in the field. The only problem is our video that we have of me talking to the public just doesn't really pick up on my voice, so I'm going to talk through what I talk about with the public, and then you'll see me actually doing it, just so you have the example of both. So when I talk about the elephants, always the first thing I do is introduce the elephants. So normally we have them in kind of groups of 3 or 2, or all 5 of the females together. So I introduce the 5 females, and there's easy ways to tell the 5 females apart. First is Jayehi, or Big J. She's 22 years old, and she's our largest. She's just the largest one. She also is kind of the boss of the herd, so you can tell off of her largeness as well as her social dynamics. Then the smallest is her daughter, Oma. And Oma and Jayehi pretty much spend all their time in close proximity to one another. So Oma is around 5 years old. She, out of the smaller ones, also has the most hair on the end of her tail. So that's really easy to pick her out. Then we have Claire and Lolly, are also 2 of our smaller elephants. Lolly is just around Oma's size. Just a little bit bigger, and Lolly has reddish hair on the top of her head and less hair on her tail. She has hardly any hair on her tail. So that's how you can pick the 2 of them apart. And then Claire is larger than Lolly, and significantly enough that you could see them even if they're not close to each other. You can tell Claire and Lolly apart. Also, Claire's tusks go straight down. If you notice, if you look at her, her tusks just go straight out, whereas the rest of them tend to curve normally. Hers don't curve at all. And then finally, we have Kiki, who's kind of our middle child female elephant. She's significantly older than the others. She's around 15. She's not as old as Jay, but she's older than the younger ones, and so her size helps her stick out. She also carries her shoulders higher than her head most of the time when she walks, so it looks like she's shrugging kind of as she walks around. So that's how you can tell the 5 females apart. And then Warren has a very curved head and has thicker tusks. And he also is not really on display often. He's only now being introduced to the females, so you probably, when doing the talks, won't really talk about him that much, except answering questions of why he isn't with the females. So I always take the time then to introduce the elephants that we have. Then I say that these are African plains elephants. African plains elephants are native to the plains and grassland savanna areas of Africa. They're a separate species from the forest elephant in Africa, which is smaller, adapted to living in the forest areas with the trees and everything else, so they're much smaller, 2 different species. Then I also talk about elephant adaptations. Part of what we're supposed to talk about is how each of these animals is adapted to their life in the wild. So with elephants, what I talk about is I'll mention how elephants can fit around 2.5 gallons of water in their trunks. They also use their ears in order to cool off their bodies, because unlike us, elephants don't have sweat glands. So what they do is they pump their blood out into their ears, and then it goes out into their ears into the air temperature. Kind of that difference helps cool themselves off, and then the cooler blood goes back into their bodies. And then a final thing I talk about, which is my most interactive point with the talk, is talking to the guests about right and left-handed and right and left tusks. So I ask the guests, especially little kids, are you guys right-handed or are you left-handed? And they can respond, and then you say, well, just like you guys, our elephants also are right and left-handed, but with their tusks. So some of ours are right tusks and some of them are left tusks. Can you pick them out? Claire and Jayehi are the easiest to tell. Claire is left tusked, so you can see that her left tusk is much, much shorter than the other because she uses it more. The same goes for Jayehi, but Jayehi is right tusked. So you can point them out easily in the exhibits to kind of say, just like you guys, the elephants are also right and left tusked, just like how you're right and left-handed. That can help make that emotional connection. And then finally, I'll go into something about conservation, to either mentioning how we got them here from Africa and other things like that, or I just go into the fact that we lose 96 elephants a day in Africa, which averages out to around 1 elephant being poached for their ivory tusks every 15 minutes. And so with that, part of you coming here to the zoo today, by giving your admission fee or getting a membership with our zoo or buying anything at one of our concession stands, etc., you're helping to support our zoo financially. And our zoo is a financial partner with many different organizations that then work to provide game wardens and other facilities in order to help protect African elephants in the wild. So already by visiting our zoo here today, you're impacting elephants all the way on the other side of the globe. And so that's kind of what I talk about when I do the elephant talk. So from here on out, it's going to cut to me talking with the public, so you might be able to hear my voice. It just depends on the audio quality. So this is kind of my talking points, and so you can find your own with what information you have on the docent site, etc., in order to develop your own talk with your own specific style. But this is what I like to do. So there you go.